Welcome back to Breaking the Chains, the podcast where we tackle some of life's toughest challenges and explore the path to freedom. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful topic, the psychology of addiction. Whether you're personally affected or seeking to understand more about this complex issue, we're here to break down the barriers, challenge misconceptions, and offer insights into the mental and emotional forces behind addiction. Let's get into it.
All right. Welcome in, everyone, to our deep dive today. We're going to be taking a close look at some excerpts that all deal with the psychology of addiction.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a really good one.
Yeah, I think this will be really fascinating. It's one of those things where on the surface level, it seems, I don't know, maybe not simple, but it's something that we hear about a lot.
Right.
But when you really get into it, you see that there's so much more going on, psychologically.
Yeah.
And so we're going to explore, I think, some of the why behind addictive behaviors, not just what addiction is, but why people get, caught up in these patterns. So I guess maybe a good place to start is just, what is addiction? Because I think it's often, when people hear addiction, they think drugs or alcohol, substance abuse.
Right.
But it's not always that, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean, when we're talking about addiction, it can be a wide range of behaviors. Gambling is a big one.
Right.
Gaming.
Right.
Even things like shopping or just internet use can become addictive. Oh, yeah.
I guess the common denominator is that people are engaging in these behaviors compulsively, even though they know that it's causing them harm.
Right. It's that sort of like being hooked on something despite knowing that it's not good for you ultimately.
Yeah.
So then that leads us to this why.
Right.
Why do people, fall into these patterns? And I think that's where things get really interesting, psychologically speaking.
Yeah. And that's where the research and the different psychological theories come in to try to shed some light on this. Because it's not just a simple matter of like, oh, this person has a lack of willpower,
right,
or, they're morally weak or whatever.
Right.
There's much more to it. And one of the most, researched and talked about theories is the cognitive behavioral theory.
Okay.
And this really focuses on learned behaviors and thought patterns.
Oh, interesting. So the idea is that, certain experiences and behaviors get linked in our brains. So I think there's a pretty straightforward example of this with, let's say, smoking.
Okay. Yeah.
If someone always has a cigarette when they're out on their back porch, over time their brain is going to start associating the back porch with smoking.
So like even if they don't have cigarettes out there, just being in that space will trigger them to want one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Those kind of environmental cues can become really powerful triggers.
Wow.
I actually remember reading about a study where they showed people who had problems with alcohol abuse. They showed them pictures of places where they would typically drink, like a bar or even like
a specific bar.
Yeah.
They used to go to or something.
Exactly. And they found that even just seeing those pictures was enough to trigger cravings.
Really?
Yeah. So it just shows how powerful these associations can become.
Wow. So it's not even necessarily like the physical act of being in the place, but the mental image or the association of the place.
Right.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess that makes me think about, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Right.
Like how that is, used to treat people with different types of addiction, I would imagine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I guess is that because it's about trying to retrain your brain to break those associations or form new ones?
Yeah.
Like how does that work?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. CBT is really focused on recognizing those unhelpful thought patterns and behaviors and then developing strategies to change them.
Right.
So yeah, you're kind of rewiring your brain's responses in a way.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. And this kind of makes me think about another theory that I know has come up in the research we looked at, attachment theory.
Yeah.
And this is all about how we connected with our caregivers early in life.
Right.
So how does that link to addiction later in life?
Well, attachment theory, basically says that our early childhood experiences, specifically how securely we were attached to our caregivers, can really influence how we cope with stress and seek comfort as adults.
So someone who had a less secure attachment, like maybe they didn't feel as safe and secure with their parents or caregivers.
Right.
Could that make them more likely to turn to addictive behaviors later in life as a way to soothe themselves?
Yeah, that's the idea. If you didn't develop those healthy ways of regulating your emotions early on, you might seek that comfort, in substances or behaviors, even if they're ultimately harmful.
It's almost like they're trying to fill this like emotional void with something, even if it's not actually good for them in the long run.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of a substitute for genuine connection or those healthy coping mechanisms.
Wow. And this makes me think of something else that was highlighted in a lot of the research: the connection between mental health and addiction. It seems like there's a really strong link there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. This is a really crucial connection to understand.
Yeah.
Pre-existing mental health conditions often play a significant role in addiction.
Okay.
So for example, if we think about anxiety,
yeah,
many people who struggle with anxiety find that substances or even certain behaviors can provide temporary relief from those anxious feelings.
Like self-medicating almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's a form of maladaptive coping, I guess.
Right.
But the problem is that immediate relief comes at a cost, and it can really feed into a cycle of dependence.
Gotcha.
And the same applies to depression. Addiction can feel like a way to numb out the emotional pain or escape those feelings of hopelessness, but ultimately it just makes things worse over time.
So it's really like a two-way street. Mental health issues can contribute to addiction.
Right.
But then the addiction itself can also worsen those mental health problems.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a complex interplay.
Wow. This is a lot to think about. This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening, I think. It's just made me realize that addiction is so much more than just like the substance or the behavior. It's about these deeply rooted psychological factors, these emotional needs that people are trying to meet.
Absolutely. And I think, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a really important question for everyone to consider. How does the stigma surrounding both addiction and mental health, how does that impact individuals who are struggling?
Yeah, that's a really powerful thought. Does that stigma make it harder to reach out for help?
Right.
How can we as a society shift from, judgment to a place of understanding and support?
Right.
These are some big questions for all of us to ponder.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to chew on today, and hopefully, this will spark some interesting conversations and some deeper thinking about addiction and the people who are struggling with it. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
You too.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell for more.